Cultural Competence in a Multicultural World by Alicia Fulgham. What is culture? So culture refers to a group or community that shares common experiences that shape the way its members understand the world. It includes groups that we are born into, such as race, national origin, gender, class, or religion. It can also include groups that we join or become a part of. People can acquire a new culture by moving to a new country or region, by a change in economic status, or by marriage. It is the norms and the customs of each particular group that are learned or shared. So why is culture important? Culture is a strong aspect of people's lives. It influences everything from their views, values, even their fears. In the healthcare field, understanding the culture of our patients is our business. Even if you are not in the healthcare field, having perspective and understanding of the culture of others increases communication and overall outcomes. Cultural diversity. The differences based on cultural, ethnic, and racial factors. All of these must be considered when providing healthcare. Healthcare providers must recognize and appreciate all characteristics of patients. Multiple areas of cultural diversity can include family organization, language, personal space, touching, eye contact, gestures, different healthcare beliefs, spirituality, and religion. Culture is paramount to the delivery of healthcare. It influences the healthcare beliefs of patients, their attitudes towards their care, trust in the healthcare system, and trust in their providers. Cultural differences affect how health information and services are received, understood, and then acted upon. So that brings us to what is cultural competence. Cultural competence is the ongoing capacity of healthcare systems and professionals to provide high quality, safe care to diverse populations. Cultural competency acknowledges that while people develop an automatic understanding of the positions and cultures to which we are each born or socialized into, understanding those of others that are different from us is far more difficult. The process of gaining understanding of numerous cultures other than your own is the process of gaining cultural competence. Cultural competence is important in every aspect of our public lives, but it is critical skill for healthcare providers who deal with diverse people in life and death situations. Primary concerns for cultural competence in healthcare: eliminating misunderstandings in diagnosis or in treatment planning that may arise from differences in language or culture. If you have a Spanish-speaking individual that refuses a blood transfusion, it's quite possible because he doesn't completely understand the process. Offering a medical interpreter to them will allow for further understanding. Improve patient compliance with treatment. Native American patient, for example, refuses to take an antibiotic for a urinary tract infection. Native Americans would rather use herbal remedies. But if you can explain that the lack of this antibiotic could lead to a progressive infection, maybe you can suggest the combination of both the Western medicine and their Native American culture, then you'd have more compliance. Lack of rapport with provider. Cultures that are concerned with female modesty should be offered the option to have same-sex providers if available. Women from these cultures may withhold vital information due to being uncomfortable with their providers. Associations that we make. What type of person do you think of when you hear the following descriptions? Alzheimer's patient, black male, Asian male, welfare recipient, Hispanic female. The people shown below fit into each of these descriptions that were reviewed on the previous slide. You've got President Ronald Reagan, Dr. Ben Carson, Selena Gomez. When we initially hear the profile of a patient, we all make associations and assumptions based on our past experiences. We have a perception of the person before we ever meet them. Patients also make the same associations when they meet us. Here I just wanted to provide some examples of some different beliefs among cultures. In the Hispanic culture, a lot of times preventative care may not be practiced. Illness is often considered God's will and recovery is in His hands. Hispanics have a high respect for authority and the elderly. Provide same-sex caregivers if at all possible. And also folk medicine and the hot and cold principles are very common among Hispanic culture. In the Asian culture, extended family has a significant influence. Usually the oldest male will often be seen as the decision maker or the spokesperson for the family or the patient. And due to respect for authority, a lot of times they will rarely disagree with healthcare recommendations, even if they're against them. Patients may be reluctant to discuss symptoms of mental illness or depression. And also amongst the Asian culture, the head is the highest part of the body and should not be touched, and modesty is highly valued. In the LEARN model, you listen to the patient's perception of the problem, explain your perception of the problem, acknowledge and discuss differences and similarities, recommend treatment options, and negotiate treatment. This model has been found to help improve outcomes of patients. Ways to implement change: involve patients in their own health care. Recognize that in many cultures, family members are deeply involved. This includes extended family also. Learn more about the culture of others. We have assumptions about health and illness that are ours alone. As a provider, assess your own cultural competence by doing a self-assessment. What do you know about the different cultures? What do you know about your culture? And how willing are you to learn? Read about the language, customs, and health beliefs of patients that you see the most frequently. But keep in mind that culture is dynamic. Be ready to negotiate or suggest alternatives to undesirable procedures. And realize that patients from other cultures have different ideas about competent treatment. Some cultures feel that every time you go to the doctor, you should be receiving a prescription for medication. There's just different beliefs about competent treatment. There's also mandatory training that usually most healthcare facilities have. It's a major issue in healthcare. And so instead of just taking the training and going through it like it's just another day, actually, really focus on what you're learning. You can also participate in self-guided education. Research for yourself. Knowledge is power. Another way to implement change is to speak the language or at least provide a medical interpreter to a patient. When you're doing that, talk to the patient, not the interpreter, and just make sure that everyone understands the role of the interpreter. Make sure you ask the right questions and look for answers. Don't ask yes or no questions. Ask questions that actually engage your patient and open them up for communication. Pay attention to financial issues. And then find resources and form partnerships. If you don't know very many resources, there are social workers in your facility that usually have a plethora of knowledge for you. Cultural competence is a continuum. The culturally competent provider has the knowledge to make an accurate health assessment, one that takes into consideration a patient's background and culture. Provider also has the ability to convey that assessment to the patient, to recognize their culture-based beliefs about health, and to devise treatment plans that respect those beliefs. To be culturally competent, a provider should acknowledge culture's profound effect on health outcomes and should be willing to learn more. Gaining cultural competence is an ongoing process. It's developed as knowledge increases, and the more knowledge, the more competence we have. It just goes full circle in providing good quality health care to individuals. And that's the end of my presentation. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you didn't fall asleep. Thanks.